Hey, Michelle, how you
Hi,
doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
All right, we're doing good. You got a nice city backdrop there. Looks good.
That is actually from the Emeryville office.
All right,
Nice.
nice. All right, and John, you're sitting at home. You're sheltering in place.
That's right, Wayne. I'm here in our Benicia, California office, enjoying the beautiful day.
All right, cool. And we have Geli also. Gailey's with me in the Fairlawn office. So yeah, I brought all you guys together so we can have a little discussion and talk about listing a boat and selling a boat and buying a boat, and how we do it and how we do it a little bit different. So everybody out there that's listening, this is actually going to be a really cool panel for you guys because you'll see some insights here on buying a boat or listing your boat that you probably don't really know and you may not even get from other brokers. So, Geli, you want to kick it off?
Sure. My name's Geli, and I've been with Atomic Tuna since September of 2019. And so it's been a fun ride, especially since the acquisition with Pacific Yachts and Fairlawn Yachts. And so we put some processes in place that we hope are very transparent and smooth for the buyers and sellers. We're going to walk through those processes with some of our key salesmen.
All right, cool. And John and Michelle, you guys are sheltering in place at your home, and you're actually getting some inquiries and following up and doing some virtual showings, and so that's really cool. What's the process for listing a boat with us? John, you wanna take a quick crack at it?
You bet, Wayne. I think I can do that. The initial process is for the broker slash salesman to go actually see the boat in question, hopefully meet with the owner if we can, but do a thorough review of the boat, inspection of the equipment, the options, the condition of the boat, go through the hatches, companionways, just look at all the equipment in the boat, and so we really understand what we're dealing with, what kind of engines, transmissions, electronics, the age of the electronics. And then you need to do all that so we can go in and determine market comps for the boat. And we have two ways of doing that. Obviously, we go in and look, what's on the market currently in a similar configuration. What kind of condition is that in, and what price are they asking for it? And then also very important is what region is the boat in. Obviously, Florida boats sell for less money than California boats. As most of you probably know, California boats demand somewhat of a premium because more boats are manufactured in the East and shipped out West, so there's a little higher cost factor. But we need to look through the comps. And the other thing we do is we go through the sold boats program and identify what similar boats have already sold, what kind of price did they sell for, what kind of condition were they in. And we use that to determine fair market value for the boat. So that's, I think, step one is determining a reasonable fair market value. And then our next step is educate the owner on what does he have, what are the comps, what are the sold boats, and then agree on a reasonable price to list the boat at. The next step would be pretty simple, put together a listing agreement, you put the price of the boat in there, the term. It's done on a California Yacht Brokers Association form, so all the brokers in the area use the same form, it's the same terms and conditions. It's not a one-off deal that we dream up. It's actually put together by the association. So it's pretty much set up to protect the buyer of the boat, much like a real estate contract is for purchase and sale of a real estate property. So once we've done that, we've executed the purchase or the listing agreement, then we go ahead and put together the video shoot of the boat. Actually, let me back up. We would then ask the owner to prepare the boat for sale, i.e. get his personal stuff off the boat, stuff he doesn't want to sell with the boat, clean the boat, hopefully have it waxed if necessary. Any obvious stuff that needs to be repaired should be addressed at that time. Torn biminies, things that are unsightly and make it hard to sell. Once that's all ready to go, or the owner decides he doesn't want to do anymore, then we do the photography, video walkthrough and all that stuff, and then actually put the listing up on Yacht World.
So one of the things that we think is really important when you're listing your boat is to eliminate objections. So we spend a lot of time with the sellers going through the boat and identifying issues like John had just mentioned, and making sure that when somebody walks up to your boat that you're going to be selling, that they don't initially say, oh, well, you know, the hull needs to be waxed, or the fenders are dirty, or the dock lines are worn out. So it's really important that we eliminate objections, clean the bilge so they don't lift up the floorboard and the bilges are filthy. Think about how you want to buy a boat. You want a nice, clean boat. And we know what it takes to sell a boat. If it's a dirty boat, if there's problems with the boat, it's not going to sell until the price is so low that the owner's not going to be happy. And it's just not worth spending the time trying to sell a boat like that, because it'll take a year. If we eliminate the objections and the boat's nice, so the exterior bright work is nice and bright, the hull's waxed, the bilges are clean, the engine is clean and serviced, then that boat's going to sell faster. And if we nail the listing price, then we're going to sell that boat in 2 months rather than 12 months. So we see it all the time. Boats get overpriced. They have objections. They sit on the market for a year, 2 years, or even longer, and the price plummets. And nobody's happy. The owner's not happy. The brokers aren't happy. So we really, really insist on, having a nice boat. And Atomic Tuna Yachts and Fairlawn Yachts, we want to be the premier yacht broker in the Bay Area. So if somebody's buying a boat from us and they come and they look at a boat virtually, they know that it's in good condition and that it's clean. So that's a really big point for us, is get that boat looking like it's absolutely beautiful. And we know how sellers are. The boat's been sitting there for a year or 2 years. You haven't visited it for whatever reason. And, they just need some care. And so, Michelle, you're working with an owner, you identify these things. What do you do with that list?
Work with them to help them find the resources to get it done. We have a list of mechanics and surveyors and riggers that can help them get those things done. And I think that's part of what we can help with getting a boat ready for sale, is what does need to be done. We see it differently than them. It's been their baby for a long time. It was their dream at one time, and we need to turn it into somebody else's dream.
That's right. So we spend a lot of time pre-posting of an ad, getting that boat right. And then John had mentioned some of the marketing things that we do. We do professional photography on every boat. So when you go to atomictunayachts.com or fairlawnyachts.com and you look at a boat that's listed with us, you'll have professional photography. There won't be any dishes in the sink. The bathroom will be clean. There won't be clothes strewn around. And people understand that when they come to Atomic Tuna and Fairlawn, that we're selling quality boats. So, Geli.
I think one of the things I wanted to highlight, besides the boat being in Bristol or clean condition, is really sitting down with the seller, owner of the boat, and finding out the potential mechanical, electrical issues with the boat systems. There's times when the radar may work, the GPS may not work. There might have had some issues with the engine. So if you can get all those questions answered up front, then we can work with those sellers to fix them. Even if we find out issues later on in the process, the boat's been with us for a month or two, and we see something unforeseen, we will still work with the seller to get that fixed. So the last thing we want is to be going in a sea trial and having it come up. So we want to have that sea trial be smooth and have the potential buyer know about any of the possible issues with that boat.
Yeah, the worst thing is to get into sea trial and the boat overheats and you didn't know it. Or you have a problem and it blows the deal. Because we all work hard. I mean, the buyer works hard, the seller works hard, your listing broker works hard, your selling broker works hard, and to have a deal that falls apart it's preventable. We should never have those, and we tried to prevent that from happening. John, you want to talk about a little bit about marketing and what do we do to market, and then we'll all kick in on that.
Sure, Wayne. I think marketing is one of the things that sets Atomic Tuna Fairlawn apart from some of our competitors. And we're trying to be a lot more active in the social media world, Facebook, Instagram, et cetera. And, Kevin obviously does a lot of work with that and keeping us in touch with all the younger social media set and making sure that we're reaching out to everybody, not just magazine readers. So we do a lot of advertising. Obviously, Yacht World is probably the biggest vehicle we have, where anybody in the world can go through our listings. But again, we have a lot of social media presence, and the Atomic Tuna website, I think, is also a pretty popular site for people to go look at boats and videos and follow our blog and our adventures. So we get a lot of hits on that website, and I think that's one of our better marketing tools is the Atomic Tuna Yachts website.
Yeah, for sure. We put a lot of effort into it, and we try to make it easy and get you to see these boats the way they really are. So on our site, you'll get the professional photography, you'll get the video. It could be multiple videos. And we also do a 3D tour on every boat. So you can actually go, as a buyer, go fly through the boat and really look at the boat. Geli handles a bunch of our social media. You want to talk a little about that?
Yeah, so with the social media, we have Facebook. We actually have two Facebook pages, one for Alameda, a main Facebook page, same with Instagram, main, and then Alameda Instagram. So we highlight a lot of our new listings, activities within the sales team, different events, obviously the virtual boat show, a lot of the social media posts you've seen with that. If you go to YouTube, you see a lot of the videos, walkthroughs, interviews with Wayne and various people, including Catalina. So we monitor that and try and tap into that to get those prospective buyers and sellers to learn more about Atomic Tuna and the brand. It's really an opportunity to grow our brand.
Yeah, so we spend money on marketing these boats, not just Atomic Tuna brand, which we do some brand marketing, but we also do marketing of the boats. So we'll do YouTube ads, we'll do Facebook ads, and it's something a lot of people don't really see, but when that boat pops up that we're selling and it's in your Facebook stream, that's us paying for an ad to promote the boat, and it really helps. It helps getting the word out to people that aren't on Yacht World. They don't really they may not know that they want to buy a boat, but they have similar interests of people that have boats, and we target those people. So we open up the market, and we get more people looking at your boat. The more people look at a boat, the sooner it's going to sell and for more money. So we really use different methods for advertising. YouTube, we got YouTube videos up. We put the YouTube videos on our site as well as on Facebook. Instagram, we have short little videos on Instagram. So, we're not just sitting back waiting for that phone. Where's that phone? There used to be a phone in here that had a cord on it and you'd wait for it to ring. Those days are gone. Totally gone. We don't do that anymore. We get leads, we follow up. Some of the things that you don't see behind the scenes that we do is we have a marketing and CRM, customer relationship management software, that we use to track customers, to follow up with customers. and to find new customers. So everything's integrated. We can tell if somebody's been on our website a bunch, and we can reach out to them. We try to gather their information from the website so we can start a conversation. So it's a lot of work that isn't your typical yacht broker. The way this business used to be is yacht broker would sit here, he'd get a listing right outside, he would print out some pages, put it in his 3-ring binder, and then when somebody comes in and says, hey, I'm interested in a power boat, 40 to 45 foot, he'd flip through his pages and say, oh, I've got one here. And then it went to co-op where his buddy down the street gave him these pages, and it went in his 3-ring binder. And then he would have to call his buddy and say, hey, is that boat still available? Well, those days are gone. Now we have, it transformed the yacht world, but now it's going even further, and it's going into all the social media that we're participating in. Google ads we're also doing. And it changes it. And especially now with this COVID-19, where we're actually doing all these virtual tours, you don't have to go from broker to broker. You don't have to go into the office. You don't have to go down to that boat. You can do it right at your computer. And that's going to help sell boats as well. So you as a owner trying to sell your boat, you really want to make sure that your broker is using as many marketing avenues as he can. And we tend to think that we're doing a pretty good job with that.
One of the other things, Wayne, you might want to mention is the reports that we review and the analytics. So if we have a boat here, how much activity did we get right when we listed the boat? There's a lot of activity around that, a lot of leads. If those leads start to taper off, we have the ability to look in as to why.
Right.
Is it the season? Is it the marketing? Is it the pricing? What do we need to do differently? So we're proactively looking at those reports so that we can work for the customer in the right way and be efficient instead of just sitting back and waiting for someone to come in our office door.
Absolutely. Michelle, pricing. John mentioned, coming up with pricing. You want to give us a couple insights into how we do it?
Sure. We, as you mentioned, we use the sold boats program that we have access to, which we can use to review the history and see what the other boats have sold for. And the other thing we can do is I always like to see what else is on the market right now, what is currently for sale, and what's the competition doing. Just because a boat has sold for $150,000 in the last 3 years, somebody else has it for sale at 99, could be a little bit tough for you to get that 150. So it's a balancing act of getting the best price for the customer, but getting a reasonable price that a buyer would be interested in.
Right. So you have that balancing act, and you need to come up with a price that's going to sell, but maximize that selling price for the seller. So when we're coming up with a price, we're always thinking about how that negotiation is going to happen. We also talk about monumental numbers. Anyone of you guys want to talk about that? No? Okay, I'll talk about it. You want to talk about it, Geli?
No, I was waiting for John.
I'm not sure what a monumental number is. But
all right, well, we're going to teach John what a monumental number is. So monumental number is $100,000. A monumental number is $150,000, $500,000, $200,000. So just for an example, I've got a seller, and the boat's worth in the 200s, the low 200s. We got to list it at I think 214, somewhere around there. We got an offer at 190. He won't go below 200. That's his monumental number. And you get people that get it in their minds these monumental numbers. Every 50,000, every 25,000. 25 is a little bit more minor, but certainly 100,000. You run into these monumental numbers, and it means a lot emotionally to the buyers and the sellers. So those are some of the things that you have to, think about when we're setting the price. We could come in with a boat that's asking $202,000 or $199,000. So where are we going to get more buyers? Michelle?
99.
199. There's a breaking point when you're searching through Yacht World, and those breaking points, if you can be right underneath those, it's very important. Right.
So you end up getting a lot more people looking at it when you pay attention to those monumental numbers. You got sellers that have loans on their boats. How does that affect the selling price of the boat, Geli?
Well, it's the seller is going to be, what's the right way to say it? They're going to be a little bit more frugal, right, with their price points. So they are going to, they need to pay, have a loan to pay off, and they're going to want to be as close as to the asking price as possible. So it's important when you're to know that up front, what the financial basis is. And the key points for that seller. And then also from the buyer standpoint, when you're negotiating that, I guess it all ties back into the pricing it fairly.
Right. And bottom line though, sellers will value their boat on the amount of their loan that's left. In reality, that has nothing to do with the actual price of the boat. The actual value of the boat. So sometimes we run into that. It's something that we talk about with the sellers, that even though they may have a $150,000 loan on the boat may be only worth $130,000. And if they get a real offer on the boat and they don't negotiate in good faith on the market value of the boat, then they're going to sit on that boat for a long time. We have a term we use. It's called holding out for a lower price. John, you've heard that?
I have absolutely heard that, Wayne, and we've seen it in practice as well. It seems like frequently your first offer or your second offer is the best offer, and they tend to go down from there. The longer you wait, the lower the offers.
Yeah, and there's a lot of other factors that factor into what a lower price is. So if I sold my boat today for $250 rather than what I wanted at $270, but then I held out, and 6 months later I still get $250, I net less. I've got slip fees, I've got insurance, I've got maintenance. And the value of the boat's going down. And there's another thing there too, nobody really thinks about, is if you have that money and it was in the bank, well, I guess right now it's not earning much interest, but it is valuable to have that money in the bank, and you are losing money if it's just sitting in a boat. So we really coach our sellers that if you get an offer, it's probably, especially the first offer, it's probably going to be your best offer, or your best buyer. I shouldn't say best offer, but best buyer, because you can negotiate that and they're serious. So if you blow off that first buyer and you wait for the next buyer to come in at a higher price, you're going to be waiting for a while. And then 6 months later, you're going to be dropping your price. And it's almost inevitable that we see the situation where they get an offer, they reject it, they end up reducing the price to less than that asking price in 6 months.
Hey, Wayne, if I could add to that, I mean, one of the other issues is a lot of our buyers, they look at Yacht World, they look at boats, and right at the top of the ad is how many days it's been on the market. And if it's a fresh boat, fairly new to market, that's why you tend to get the best offers then. And then if you hold out, keep waiting for a higher offer, the buyers, they look at that and say, oh, wow, this boat's been on the market 180 days. They're probably getting desperate by now. I think I'll go on with a low ball offer. So you're absolutely right. The first buyers are the most interested. They want to get it, while it's fresh off the skillet there, so to speak. And the longer it's been sitting there maturing, much like real estate, the less interest people have in it.
Yeah, that's right. So if we can price the boat right, we eliminate objections, we sell that boat in the first 60 days, you're going to net the most money out of that boat. I mean, we see it over and over and over again. It's really incredible. Don't hold out for that lower price. It's kind of a funny saying, right?
So Wayne, we just got an interesting question from somebody, and they're asking, is there ever really a buyer or seller's market that corresponds with the overall economic situation? What do you think about the current market situation based on COVID?
Oh, yeah. It's really interesting. So I had mentioned earlier in this show today that we're actually really active, and we're more active now than we have been. But I think it's a market segment that's really active. In that market segment we're seeing is people that are home, and they could be working at home or they're retired, but they're sitting at home and they're cruising through or surfing through the internet, and they're thinking, I should be out cruising. I've worked my whole life. Or even a 30-year-old, I worked hard for the last 10 years and I've got money and I should be go cruising. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And these people sitting at home, you sitting at home, are thinking, what should I do? And we're all passionate sailors here. So the obvious thing is, let's go sailing. Let's go get a boat. And we're seeing the market for nice cruising boats. Hold on one sec, please. We're seeing the market for nice cruising boats in the $150,000 range and up being really strong. We've got, 4 or 5 boats in contract. Most of them are 300,000 plus. So that market segment, I think, is really strong. So if you own a boat and you're sitting at home and you're not using it and you haven't used it for years or even 6 months, and you're not going to use it, and it's a cruising sailboat, you should really be thinking about listing that boat, whether it's with us or somebody else. Of course, we'd like to get listing, but you should really be thinking about listing that boat. Now, this market segment that we saw crash, and it makes a lot of sense, is the lower end market, the gig workers that, they're buying $30,000, $50,000 boats because that's what they can afford. Suddenly they don't have any money. And that market, from what we're seeing, is dried up, although we just had somebody on our 260 Sea Ray that put an offer in the less than 50,000 range. But we don't see a lot of action there. The upper end market, we haven't seen much action there. We've got some inquiries. I think people at the higher end, $500,000 and up, are just kind of sitting around wondering what's going to happen. And then on the selling side, we haven't seen people running to the brokerages saying, I need to sell my boat. Time to sell my boat. We expect that to happen at some point. And at that point, there's probably going to be some market correction, at least for some boats where the prices are going to diminish. And there could be some great deals out there. But we haven't seen it yet. Geli, have you seen anybody?
No, and it's a common question actually for buyers, because they because of the COVID-19 and the current state of the economy, they feel that it's an opportunity to bring in a lower offer. But we haven't seen a true shift in that market, a drop in those comps to warrant that, right? So everything that we've seen in the markets, it has been pretty steady. Back to selling or listing a boat, we talked a lot about earlier in the day and briefly now about the process and using Zoom, FaceTime, or WhatsApp to walk through for a boat that you want to purchase, but we do the same thing for boats that we're looking at listing. So you don't have to bring the boat here. We don't have to go there. We can meet up with you online and go through it and ask the same questions and get the same kind of quality information.
Yeah, good point, Geli. Good point. Yeah,
Wait,
we're
can I bring up a-
continually trying to adjust for this COVID issue. And I think, we're going to be in this situation for a while. I mean, we know to the end of May. I mean, that's obvious, but I think for even longer, we're going to be in this situation. So we're kind of uniquely positioned to offer those services for you.
Hey, Wayne, can I bring up another point real
Okay,
quick?
what happened? I'm sorry, John?
Oh, I just wanted to bring up one more point.
Sure.
Talking about opportunities to go boating under this shelter-in-place order and distancing, etc. Boats make a great place to work from home. I have Wi-Fi set up, which is really easy to do. You put it in your boat, just get a Wi-Fi hotspot. And I work from my boat quite a bit. I set up my computer, got my Wi-Fi hotspot, got my cell phone. You can work out of a boat. You can be out cruising with your family, having a good time, fishing, and still be working. So you can shelter at home in your boat. And that's just like being at home. So
Yeah, that's a
good
great
reason to buy
point,
a
John.
boat.
Michelle, you've been out on your boat too, right?
I have been. That's been my safe place to go. I've gone out by myself. I've also gone with my husband. I recently ventured out a little bit further, and a friend of mine went with me that cruised for me regularly. And she and I agreed that we could manage the boat, social distancing, and we did. We wore a mask when we first boarded. We were never down below at the same time. She sat up on the cabin top and I drove, and she did all the rigging and sail changes and everything. And I got to be the princess at the back of the boat. And we had a beautiful sail. It was just we've had some really great weather, so don't miss out. And so sailing is a physical activity and people need to get out. And the great thing about being on the water was that it's like normal. You get to a little slice of normal. You don't have anything get in your way. You can wave at your friends from a distance. It's great to have a boat in this era right now.
Yeah, that's great. Does any one of you three have anything else to add on the selling side, the listing side? What happens after we list the boat?
So after we have the listing, we bring the boat to our sales basin. So we have 4 offices. We have an office in Tiburon, an office in Emeryville, office in Grand Marina, and an office here in Marina Village. 2 of those offices have sales basins right there. So we bring the boats here. It's easier to show that boat when it's here in the sales basin, especially during this nice weather. If it weren't for COVID-19, you'd have a lot of people walking through the marina. And so they have an opportunity to see your boat while it's here versus driving across the bay, or, to take a prospective buyer to 3 different locations across the bay. So it's nice to have them here to walk them through all the boats that they may be interested in. Once it's listed, we still actively using our marketing tools and technology that we talked about earlier. A lot of showings. We notify the seller anytime that we do have a showing, when we have an interested buyer, to get their feedback, keep them informed so that they know that we're continuing to work for them, and then work to get that boat, that offer in contract.
And then we manage the cleanings.
We manage the cleanings.
So the boats are always kept nice. Right now, we've been doing it about every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks, and then we make sure that the bottom is cleaned as well. So we work with the seller for that cost, but we want to make sure that the bottom continues to be maintained, the zincs are changed. Again, because you're thinking about that sea trial, and you want to avoid any potential objections or issues.
Right. That's just eliminating another objection. So if my boat needs a bottom job, should I do it if I'm a seller?
Most definitely. I know it's hard when sellers, you made a commitment to sell the boat. You're not excited about putting money into the boat. Even as a boat owner, I'm not looking to sell my boat, and I don't want to put money into the boat. It's not fun. So I imagine it's tougher when you have it for sale. But it really is important to keep that boat maintained. We do our job to let you know what the costs are, what the quotes would be, so you're never surprised by an unforeseen bill or unknown bill. But we do encourage you to keep up with the maintenance. Let us know your maintenance schedule. Let us know your preferred divers. Let us know the mechanics, and we'll do our best to work with those people.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one more thing on the boats in the sales basin. We're still doing the virtual showings, the social distancing. It's still good to have the boats here. We can go down and do virtual showings if they're here. It makes it easier for us. And when you look out our window, we see people walking by all day long, and they're seeing these boats, and we get inquiries. We don't let them come into the office. They have to call us up or email us, or they just peek their head in and ask a question. But it does give it more exposure. It's a good thing to have them in the sales basin, and we take care of the boats. We look after them, make sure they're clean, and that things are taken care of. So it's a good thing to bring them over to our sales basin. And if the boat's too far away, it really makes it much more difficult to sell, whether it's with us or other brokers. So just keep that in mind. Michelle, anything else on the selling side, listing side?
No, I like to keep in touch with my sellers, make sure that they know what's going on and what we're doing with the boat. And if I don't have something happening, I like to maybe try to rearrange some of the social media that we do and get the boat featured a little bit more.
Yeah, that's great. You guys want to pivot to the buying side?
Sure.
Before we go there, let's see if there's any other questions. Anybody have any questions out there? I know we've dumped a lot of information on you guys. You're getting years and years of experience and information and some insights into how Atomic Tuna and Fairlawn Yachts does it. And we've been doing it pretty quick. So if you got any questions, why don't you go ahead and put it in our chat, and we'll try to answer them. Let's see. Would you like me to try ask your question still?
You might try
Do
to
you have a
answer the one,
question?
is it always very boat specific and relatively immune to the larger market?
I don't
Is
see
selling
any
and buying
questions
boats?
here.
Oh, wait, Michelle's reading off a question.
Yeah. The very first one we got, I think we kind of dove into the COVID-19, and it was, is the buyer or seller's market always going to correspond to the economic situation, or is it more boat specific and relatively immune?
Yeah. You want me to answer it, or you want to take a shot at it?
I think your experience is going to tell a lot more.
Okay. So the market, the boat market, and you know, I talked a lot about COVID because that's what we're in now. But let's go back in some of our experience in the past. It is really related to the economics. If we're in a recession, people are selling their boats and prices are going down. If we're in a really good economy, people are buying boats and prices they're not going up, but they're not going down as fast. They're kind of leveling out. As far as new boat sales, when we're in a recession, generally those dry up. 2008, there was basically no boats sold from 2008 to 2012, except Catalina. Catalina made it through that and sold boats through that time. But you'll notice if you look on Yacht World for boats for sale, it's rare that you see a boat between 2008 and 2012. They're either 2012 or newer or 2008 and younger. So, and that's all a result of the economy and how that's going. Boat specific. So yes, it is a little boat specific. There are certain boat brands that hold their value. Grand Banks is one of the few boats that we've ever seen with a value that goes up. they'll go through a wave, but they will go back up. Most other boats, when they go through a down, they'll keep going down. They may slow down the rate of decrease, but they'll just keep going down. Catalinas tend to really hold their value because they're a really high quality boat. I think that's why we see Grand Banks doing the same thing. Some of the bigger boats, Ocean Alexanders, hold their value pretty well. Some of our competitors, some of the French boats, not to name any names or anything, they tend to have a bigger depreciation. And though that is boat specific. So yes, you have to kind of watch the trends. With our sold boat data that we have access to, and we give access to both our buyers and our sellers, so they understand the market. You can generally see these trends. They are location dependent. So a boat here in the Bay Area may sell for more or less money than a boat down in California, and certainly for more money than a boat in Florida. John mentioned that there's more boats in Florida, absolutely. So that that demand drives the market down, and that boats that are built over there get shipped here, so they have a higher cost initially. That keeps the prices up here a little bit. But also we see, especially in Florida, that the boats down there are worn more, they get used more, and they're in a much harsher environment. So you take a similar year boat, whether it's a sailboat or a power boat, from California to Florida, generally you'll see that the California boat's in better condition. And I tend to think, and I may be a little bit biased here, but I think the Bay Area is the ideal place to buy a boat on the West Coast. If you go down to LA or San Diego, lots of boats down there, lots of good boats down there, more higher end boats down there as well. But they're more exposed. They have more UVs. So, they're not in as good condition, gel coat wise, and just condition wise as they are up here. Go up to Seattle, it's raining all the time. Everything's green, dirty. The boats aren't as nice as they are down here, although there's a lot of nice boats up there too. Don't get me wrong, but I generally think that, if you can find a boat in the Bay Area, you should be buying it here. We buy boats, we help people buy boats, and we also list boats all over on the West Coast. It costs more to buy a boat in Seattle and to bring it down here than to buy it here. The same with LA. But it can be done. You got to weigh the pluses and minuses of buying a boat outside of the Bay Area. East Coast, you can certainly buy boats cheaper. You got to look at their condition, and then you got to lump on $20,000 plus for trucking. So generally, unless it's a $500,000 plus boat that you're getting a huge discount on, it's usually not worth trucking a boat from the East Coast to here. We do it sometimes. The Great Lakes is a great place to buy a boat. The trucking is less up there. It's in fresh water, but there aren't a lot of boats up there. So have I answered your question? I think so.
Yeah, I think so. But do you see the next question? It's from Jeff McIntosh. Do you see more power boats going up for sale after the pandemic?
Yeah, Jeff. I think that we're going to get a lot of boats for sale. I know you had been looking at some power boats, and I think with this pandemic right now, I think people are just trying to figure out what's going to happen. And I think that's going to go on for a while till we get a clearer vision of where this pandemic is going and how it's going to affect us. There was another 3.5 or 3.8 million people that filed for unemployment last week. We're, 20 million unemployed. So certainly a few of those will have boats, and we'll be wanting to sell those boats. So yeah, yes, Jeff, I absolutely think that we're going to start getting more and more boats listed and on the market, both power boats and sailboats. I think the sailboats are going to sell faster than the power boats, but I think we're going to have both.
Like John said, a powerboat makes a great office.
I'm sorry, Michelle?
A powerboat makes a great office.
Great office.
It does.
And it makes a great liveaboard
Yeah.
too. You know, I live on Grand Banks, so and there's a reason I could have bought any boat I wanted to out there, but I ended up on a Grand Banks because of the space and being on a powerboat. I mean, I'm a sailor. I've sailed all over the world. My last trip was South Africa to Florida, and I love sailboats, but to live on, to have an office, no question about it.
So another person asked the question, is it possible to sell their boat on a contingency based on selling their boat? So to buy a boat based on selling theirs on contingency. I have to say, I've never tried doing that.
Yeah, it's really difficult. New boats, you can do trade-ins. You can, if you're looking at a new boat, but an older boat, and buying a used boat, it's difficult. People don't like to get into a contract with a contingency like that. One of the things as a buyer that you should keep in mind is once you go into contract, generally we do 21 days, although I think with this pandemic, we'll go more like 28 days to do all your surveys and final acceptance. Once you're in contract, you can reject the boat for any reason at any time. So we just had a deal where one of our buyers was selling a house, and he didn't put a contingency in the contract. But if the house didn't sell, he probably would have backed out of the contract. Now, the risk that you run as a buyer doing that is if you end up doing your surveys, you have survey costs. On the other hand, if you're into a contract and you're making progress and you have a boat that looks like it's going to sell, but you need more time, you can usually get the seller of the boat you're going to buy to extend the contract. Because everybody wants to sell the boat or buy the boat. They want to finish the transaction. So yeah, did I answer that question? I know I rambled a little bit. Sorry about that.
Hey, Wayne, can I bring up another point?
Absolutely.
I was just going to say, I think a lot of buyers or prospective buyers are a little bit tentative about putting in an offer because they feel like, they got to make a 10% deposit when they write the offer, and then they become at risk. But I think it's important for potential buyers to know and understand that you're very, very protected under the contract, and that at pretty much any time, if you take the boat out on a sea trial, you don't like the way it handles, your wife doesn't like the way it looks, when the mechanic has some issues you don't want to deal with, you can back out anytime within that 28 day period and get a full refund of your deposit. And as Wayne pointed out, maybe you've paid, $400 to have your engines looked at, or, maybe you've got a little out of pocket expense, but you're really not obligated until you sign final acceptance. So I think people should feel a little more free to say, hey, I'm going to make an offer. Let's see where this goes. If it doesn't pan out, I get my money back.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Good point.
You shouldn't take it too seriously making an offer. That's just kind of putting your hat in the ring, is the way I look at it.
Absolutely. But you know what happens with these buyers when they put the offer in? They love the boat. Right? That's why they're making the offer, and they want to buy the boat. So, but John's right. I mean, for any reason, especially during these uncertain times, if things change, you need to back out of the contract to get all your money back. We run a state-controlled escrow account. The money's in that escrow account. We can't touch it, or I go to jail. Not Geli, not Michelle, not John, but Wayne goes to jail. And I don't like jail.
I don't want that.
So I'm not going
We
there.
don't want you there.
Yeah, and these guys
No.
don't want me in jail because they'd have to sneak in some food for me.
So the other question,
Oh, go ahead, Michelle.
oh, sorry. The question that I see that's come up in a couple different places and that we did touch on, but not very deeply, is establishing the list price. I think we talked about it a little at the beginning, and I think we've had some people add on. And so I've seen that at least come up twice. So if we could talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, I'll talk about that a little more. Your listing price is well, I shouldn't say the most important. There are a few of the most important things, and listing price is right up there at the top. We use sold boat data. We use current boats for sale data. We look at the condition of the boat. We do a full market evaluation of the boat to come up with a listing price. What we don't want to do is overprice the boat. The worst thing you can do is overprice the boat and sit and watch it for 6 months with nobody coming. So what happens, and I talk about this a lot, when you post a listing for a boat, there's a group of buyers in the market right now looking to see what's available. And when you post that, they will look at that boat. And if it's overpriced, they go away. And what happens? They go on to the next boat. So you're losing this group of buyers that are in the market looking for a boat. And that's usually over the first 30 days, 30 to 45 days. Anybody in the market will see your boat. And if it's in the market, even the high end of the market, you're going to get people looking at the boat and you're going to get offers. If you're above the market, you may get somebody that's going to give you a lowball offer, but they're not going to give you a reasonable offer. So you really want to price the boat aggressively. If you have a boat that's worth 150 and you price it at 180, you're going to sell it less than if you price it at 159. So we've been through this a lot. We'll sit down with you, talk about it, coach you on it, but it's really a big deal to price it right. Did I answer that?
I think that's good.
I did. Yeah. Let me say another thing also. A lot of times we'll get people that are listing their boat and they come in and they say, I have this $200,000 boat and I put another $100,000 into it. So I think the value of the boat is 300 or 290 or 310. Unfortunately, that's not the way boats work. It's not like a house where you put an addition on and you get more square footage, or you add a new kitchen and you actually increase the value of the boat. You really don't. What ends up happening is you end up at the top end of the market for that boat and you sell the boat faster. And if you think about it, selling the boat faster is essentially getting a higher price for the boat. So you got to be really careful about that. When buyers go to look at your boat, whether they look at it through Fairlawn Yachts or Atomic Tuna with one of these sales guys, or some other broker, any one of the brokers in this building or any of the brokers, the buyer will be seeing the sold boat data, and they'll see that you paid 2 years ago $225 for the boat or $200 for the boat. So now you dumped 100 in. Do you think you're going to get 300 for the boat? Well, they see that you paid 200. It's a psychological game. It's not really fair, but that's the way the market works. But if you price it right, you're going to get at the top of the market and sell it faster. Any other questions? How are we looking on time? We got about seven minutes on this show. Hey, just for everybody that's listening, we're going to have a quiz coming up at 3:00, and we're going to be giving away prizes. So definitely hang out for that quiz. It's going to be fun. There's some things in there that you'll laugh at. He'll talk about nautical terms and where they came from. It'll be a lot of fun. So definitely hang out for that. All right, let's talk about the selling side a little bit. Well, we got 5 minutes or 7 minutes. John, do you want to what are you drinking there?
It's
I
iced
got
tea,
a
I
little
promise.
Pellegrino. John, you want to just talk a little about sellers or excuse me, buyers? Just get a little bit on the buyer side.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned before, the buyer, I encourage my buyers, if they like a boat, make an offer. But let me just back up a little bit. As a salesman, one of my jobs is if a buyer comes in and doesn't know exactly what they want, but they have some criteria, then it's my job or any of our job to try to figure out what style, type, make, and model of boat would be the most appropriate for them. And one thing about the boating world is there's a huge number of boats and models and manufacturers out there. It's just mind-boggling when you go through the lists of boat manufacturers. So it's really difficult for the average person to figure out, all the appropriate boats that might work for their lifestyle. And I think that's where, the value of having a good broker / salesman comes in, is having somebody help you kind of winnow through all the myriad of boats available and find the type of boat or types that best fit your lifestyle. And, one thing is it's a collection of compromises. You got to make your wish list, your Ben Franklin list of here's things I absolutely have to have in my boat. Is it diesel engines? Is it a second or third stateroom, 2 heads versus 1? Whatever your must-have list is, you should write that down. And then you want to have your wouldn't it be nice list. Hey, I'd love to have teak decks, or I'd love to have a vacuum flush toilet. And, then you can work with your salesman / broker and actually go through, the myriad of options of what kind of boat should I really be looking at.
As well as fatal flaws, right? So something that, boat may have that you absolutely wouldn't buy that boat.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, there's definitely some lemons out there, and there's some designs that are not appropriate for certain buyers. And I think that's one of our jobs, is educating people of, hey, you want to steer away from this and point them in the direction they want to go.
So once they find the boat, and they say, yeah, let's make an offer, what's the next steps on that? Michelle, you want to answer that?
But I guess I'd like to back up a little bit, because I feel like some of the hardest work is figuring out what the right boat for them, getting them onto the right boat. Helping them understand that a boat is also a long-term expense, not just a short-term expense. And so I like to try and share as much information with my clients as possible about the expense of a boat. I have spreadsheets that I share with them on what the cost can be beyond just slip fees and a payment. But you get them onto the right boat, and then you help them place the offer. Then you have to help them get through the process of, is it the right boat for them? You get them into a sea trial. If you can do the sea trial first, that's always the best, because then they haven't lost any money or invested any money in the boat other than showing up and getting on the boat for the sea trial. And the sea trial can tell you a lot if that boat's going to fulfill that dream that you have. I'm a believer in that magic of boat and dream, and that putting the two together means the boat's going to feel right for you, not just sail right and look good. It's going to feel like the right boat for you. And so you start with a sea trial, then you get set up for the survey and haul and hang to get it all checked out. You talk about riggers if it's a sailboat, mechanical surveys to make sure it's all sound, because you want to make sure that the person doesn't walk away regretting the boat they bought. And if we do our job well, that's not going to happen. They're going to be very, very happy with what they've done.
And how long does the process usually take?
We've done it in a week and a half, but it tends to take at least 3 weeks, because you have to get on a surveyor schedule. And some of the surveyors are out 10 days to 3 weeks themselves on scheduling. You have to get into the yard for the haul and hang. That can take some time in scheduling. And actually I feel like that's a big part of our job, is helping with that scheduling, because you need to get the sea trial scheduled. You need to get the survey scheduled, rigging scheduled, mechanics scheduled. It's a lot of dealing with the moving parts and calling people and getting everybody settled in to get it done. But about 3 weeks, usually you can get everything done. The piece that is usually surprises most people is that at the very end, you've done your sea trial, you've done all your surveys, and then you have to get your title straightened out, and you have to get the bill of sale, and you have to potentially get a loan, which you need to be working on ahead of time. But at the end, it can still take a week to get the Coast Guard documentation completed and the bill of sale completed, depending on where the owner lives. There's a lot of complications, and buying a boat isn't all that simple. So it's good to have a broker that can help you work through some of those things and take some of the load off you with the scheduling and the information load that comes in, and that can be distributed a lot better if you have somebody working for you.
Yeah, so I think you're getting the feel. We don't just sit around and wait for the phone to ring and then sign a contract. We do a lot of work for you guys, and we do it because we have fun and we enjoy it. And the best thing for me is to have a customer like Kurt Christofferson, who's on this call right now, who I helped find the right boat, and he's out cruising, and he comes back and reminds me, how happy he is with his boat. That is just awesome. We got one quick question here before we wrap this up. If I wanted to buy a boat from a private person, do you offer some type of survey assistance to check out the boat for me, of course, for a fee? So, so buying from a private person, we generally don't get involved in that. We can work as a buyer's broker if the seller, the private person, will work with us. Sometimes we've done that. It's pretty rare. We could work as your buyer's broker for our normal commission, but then it would come out of your side. So generally we don't. Usually private people selling boats don't really know the market either. So you got to be really careful with that. And, you could seriously overpay for a boat buying from a private person and have some issues. But if you, send us an email or contact us, as far as the process, we'll help you, let you know what that process is. But we don't generally get involved with private transactions very often. All right. Geli?
No, I think we covered everything.
All right. Yeah. Well, we're pretty quick on the buyer side, but I think if you're a buyer and you listen to our seller side, you learned a lot about buying a boat as well. The actual transactional side of the buyer side, it's pretty cut and dry. I mean, we do it all the time. The seller side is kind of more of the fairy dust, and how do you really get these boats in the right price, in the right condition to sell fast. John,
the number
Michelle?
one thing is communication, I would say. It's the
Number one thing is communication. Absolutely. I think we really pride ourselves on that. John and Michelle, we appreciate you hanging out. And if you guys have something real quick to say.
Hey, I do, me, I'm always full of words, but one thing I would just say, the private party transaction, I would caution anybody doing that just from the viewpoint of we don't have all the surveys, inspections, and sea trials involved in private sale. So it's really easy to get stuck with a boat with mechanical issues that are not readily apparent. I mean, that's one of the benefits of going through a brokerage is they strongly encourage you to do all the proper surveys and inspections to make sure you know what you're buying.
All right, cool. Michelle, parting words?
Well, I feel like we're out of time, but I just like to let people know that feel free to call us with questions. All of our numbers are on the website, and we'd be happy to talk with you and see what we can do to help you get into the boat of your dreams.
Yeah, sure.
And
That sounds good.
And to Deanna Landers, this recording will be available later.
Yeah, Deanna and everybody else, we will be putting all of this show up on our site. We'll try to segment it out so you can look at different panels and interviews. But yes, we will have it up on the site. So cool. We're going to wrap up this one. That one a little bit longer than we had planned, but I think you guys got a lot of good information from it.